MotoGP can often become a contest between nations, with fans displaying borderline rabid behavior to support their fellow countrymen.
There are fans on the track already!
Oftentimes, this patriotism is directed at individual riders, teams, or constructors. This makes sense, as these are the championships that MotoGP awards at the end of each season. But what if there was another championship? One designed to feed into this international competition. What if MotoGP awarded a nations championship? Who would truly come out on top as the most dominant country in MotoGP history? Now, if you know your MotoGP history, this seems like a stupid question. It's going to be about 4 countries across different time periods. But I'm going to make it a little more interesting than that, I promise. See, in order to combat a few countries winning every single time and making this a boring video, I'm going to award medals. This means that every single year I'll be awarding a gold, silver, and bronze medal to the countries who were most successful in that season. That way we'll get a clearer picture of which countries have actually been the most dominant all throughout the years. So, how did I go about calculating which country did the best in each season? Well, I didn't just want to add all of the riders from each country's point totals together, because this would vastly favor larger countries or countries who are disproportionately overrepresented in MotoGP. But I did also want to reward countries who have better rider development programs and better infrastructure, because that is part of what a country has put into the MotoGP championship. In order to combat this, I decided to take the average number of riders from each country and make that X. Then I would take the points from the top X riders from each country, add them together, and that's how you would get a country's point total. The riders on that team I'm going to call the national team for that year. So, for example, if the average number of riders in a season for each country is 3, then I would take the top 3 results from each country, whether that's first, second, or third, first, third, and 8th, or however things end up stacking up. Then I'll add those together, compare them to the points totals of every other country, and whoever comes out in the top 3 positions will win the gold, silver, and bronze medal for that year's MotoGP Nations Championship. In 1949, riders from 4 countries brought home points. Sid Jensen from New Zealand netted 5 points for his homeland. Ernie Lyons netted 7 points and the first bronze medal for the country of Ireland. This first season, much like the decades to come, was dominated by 2 major countries, Britain and Italy. This season would be a close-fought battle for the Riders' Championship between British rider Leslie Graham and Italian rider Nello Pagani. In the end, Graham would come out on top by just 1 point. Graham would also lead his national team to the first gold medal in motorcycle Grand Prix racing history, bringing glory to Britain and proving that they were the best in the world, at least for 1 year. Ahead of the 1950 season, British fans would be excited and hope to see a repeat, and they would get their wish. But this time it wasn't Leslie Graham leading the pack, it was the sport's first superstar, Jeff Duke.
Yes, Bob, I quite agree. But I suppose the most important thing for any rider is simply to know his own limitations and those of his machine. Once he is aware of these, he can plan his approach to any particular circuit and devise ways of overcoming them, so that every ounce of effort goes into the business of getting his machine round quickly and safely.
Duke was a charismatic gentleman, extremely popular with the crowds, but he was also absolutely determined to go as fast as possible on the racetrack. Duke was an absolute genius at cutting time off of laps. For example, one time during a test session in France, Duke noticed that his teammate Artie Bell was able to get more speed out of the bike they were on, despite being a bigger rider. Duke suspected this to be because his leathers were flapping in the wind, so he went back to the crew, taped down the loose flaps on his leathers, and immediately started lapping faster than Bell. For the 1950 season, he would commission the first ever set of one-piece riding leathers. This is a trend that would continue on to this very day. That's just how Duke was. If he didn't like something, he'd change it, and he'd end up riding faster because of it, all throughout his career. In 1950, Duke would lead the British team to a championship, despite Italian Umberto Massetti securing the Riders' Championship. Australia would also get its first bronze medal this year. In 1951, fans would see this situation reversed, with Duke winning the Riders' Championship, but the Italians securing their first national championship, led this time by Alfredo Milani. They would repeat in 1952, this time Umberto Massetti secured both the Riders' Championship and the national championship. Great Britain would take the championship back in 1953, with Jeff Duke leading the British team to a dominant victory ahead of Italy and Ireland. 5 years into the history of the championship, fans would likely believe that Italy and Great Britain would continue this rivalry for years and years to come. They seemed evenly matched, and it was perfectly believable that this would become a two-horse race. It wouldn't.
He won this event by 700 yards in true championship form.
Duke's the winner because of the staggered start.
Jeff was now leading the World Championship.
Italy simply didn't have the firepower to deal with Britain's stars. Umberto Massetti, Carlo Banderola, and Alfredo Milani would provide a valiant effort, but Jeff Duke was unstoppable for the next 2 seasons. During this time, prolific 350cc Rhodesian rider Ray Am secured a silver medal for his country, its first, and Australian legend Ken Kavanagh would lead his country to a bronze medal. As the 1955 season drew to a close, Great Britain would lead Italy, 5 gold medals to 2. Ireland so far would be the best of the rest, securing 5 bronze medals in the first 7 years of the sport. However, tragedy would strike for British fans as the 1955 season drew to a close. It was announced that Jeff Duke would be suspended for the first half of the 1956 season for supporting a riders' protest at the Dutch TT. Privateer riders at the time were severely mistreated, sometimes being lied to about the number of spots on a grid by race organizers and then turned away at the gate after getting there on their own dime. And even when they were able to race, they received little pay compared to factory riders. In Duke's absence, fans would be ecstatic to see who could possibly come in and claim the crown. Would Rhodesian rider Ray Am make his move? Would the Italians take their first medal in 5 years? The door was now wide open for someone new to secure a nation's championship, and that door would be firmly closed by John Surtees.
John's 1956 TT week was quite eventful. After running out of fuel in the 350 race, he hit a cow in practice for the senior and had to use his spare bike for the race.
Surtees was a young British rider who hadn't found much success thus far in his career. In the 1956 off-season, he moved to MV Agusta, an Italian manufacturer with a reputation to have bikes that were impossible to ride. 2 riders had already died due to accidents on these bikes, and many riders had become wary of them. It was highly doubtful that Surtees would win anything on these bikes. Surtees would break his arm in the next round, but it didn't matter. He was already champion. His and Augusta's first. Augusta would go on to win 15 of the next 17 Constructors' Championships. Meanwhile, German rider Walter Zeller would make a valiant effort. Zeller would eventually finish second in the Riders' Championship and would secure a silver medal for Germany on his BMW. The following year, Italian rider Libero Liberati would win the Riders' Championship in dominant fashion. Due to Britain's overwhelmingly high number of riders, the team size this year was 4 riders, a mark Italy barely missed. With the addition of 4th rider Dickie Dale, Britain barely pulls ahead of Italy in the nation's championship, winning yet another gold medal. Over the next 3 years, Surtees would lead Britain to 3 more dominant gold medals, but a close battle was emerging for silver between Italy and Australia. In 1958, Australia appeared to be on course for a silver medal, with Bob Brown getting some good results, and a second place from Keith Campbell helping the team secure 12 points ahead of the final round, with no Italian competitors to speak of. However, in the 1958 Grand Prix of Nations, Umberto Massetti, Remo Venturi, and Carlo Banderola all started their first race of the season. Campbell would fail to start, and partway through the race, Brown would be forced to retire. Venturi would finish second, Massetti third, and Banderola fifth to score 12 points in a single round, tying the Australian team for second place. Now in this case, I gave the edge to the Australian team because they were able to secure the same number of points with fewer riders, which I think is more impressive in this case. In the 1959 season, Brown and Venturi would face each other head-on for second place in the Riders' Championship. Ken Kavanagh helped Brown out by scoring 3 points in the German Grand Prix. Team Australia was ahead of Venturi by 2 points heading into the final round. However, because of the net point system, Venturi would need a second place finish, and Brown would need to finish 4th or worse in order for an Italian silver medal to be possible. Venturi, all on his own, won Italy the silver medal by 2 points. The following year, Venturi would get a new teammate, Emilio Mendagni. Together, the riders passed Bob Brown and Tom Phillips to secure another silver medal. In 1961, the superstar of the era, John Surtees, would leave MotoGP in favor of another series, Formula One. Just 4 years later, he would go on to win that championship as well, becoming the only racer in history to win at the pinnacle of two-wheeled motorsport and four. It had been almost a decade since anyone except Britain won a nation's championship, and the door was now wide open for someone new to come in and take the crown. That door would be closed firmly by Mike Hailwood. Wait, again? Are you serious? Didn't we just do this? That's right. Just like Surtees and Duke before him, Hailwood would come in right when it seemed possible for someone to topple Britain's motorcycle empire and become the most dominant force in the sport. In 1961, there was hope. Gary Hawking from Rhodesia would win his country its second silver medal, along with the World Riders' Championship, and Argentina would become the first country from the Americas to win a medal. The next time anyone would come within 20 points of Britain would be in 1966, when Giacomo Agostini would lead Italy to a silver medal all on his own. The Riders' Championship was his, no question, and he was clearly the one who Hailwood would pass the torch to once his time was up. But Agostini wouldn't quite have any teammates capable of helping him just yet, so the nation's championship would remain in the hands of Great Britain. During Hailwood's era of untouchable dominance, Australia would continue racking up its medal count, winning 2 more silver and bronze medals each. Canada and South Africa would also earn their first bronze medals, Canada in 63 and 64, and South Africa in 65. In 1967, Agostini and Hailwood would finish the Riders' Championship as closely as they possibly could, literally tying in points. In the end, the Riders' Championship went to Agostini, since he had more first-place finishes than Hailwood, but the Nations' Championship goes to Britain once again, with John Hartle and Peter Williams giving better performances than Angelo Bergamonti and Giuseppe Mandolini. In 1968, the battle between Agostini and Hailwood would come to an end. Honda, who Hailwood rode for, would decide to pull out of the Grand Prix Motorcycle Racing World Championship, but they anticipated they would return, and so they paid Hailwood to not ride for anyone else while they were away. This return would never come, and Agostini was free to take over where Hailwood had left off. Agostini would absolutely dominate the coming years, like nothing we'd ever seen before, winning easily in 1968. In 1969, with the introduction of a new point system, Agostini became the first rider to pass 100 points in a season. This wasn't just the system of new points giving him this record though. Agostini won 10 of the 12 rounds that season, and second place finisher Gyula Marsovski had less than half of Ago's points. In fact, British riders finished in 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th, and Italy still managed to beat them, even with riders only finishing in 8th, 10th, and 18th. Agostini would continue his dominant winning streak, scoring another gold in 1970. In 1971, Agostini could have beaten Britain's 4-rider team by himself to take the championship, and in 72, his team would win another gold medal by 80 points. This was by far the most dominant streak by an individual rider we had seen so far. In case you need any more convincing about how dominant Agostini was during this 5-year period, he won every single race he finished from 1968 to 1972 in the Premier class. Every single race where he got his bike across the line, he was the first to do so. That's crazy. What's even crazier is that he did the same thing for the first 4 years of that period in the 350cc class as well. When he showed up to the race and he didn't crash or have a technical problem, no one could touch him. In 1973, however, Italian fans were into a shock to the system. Phil Reed would put on a dominant performance on his two-stroke machine, nearly getting enough points to beat the Italian team all on his own. But strong performances from the British riders helped ensure the first British victory of the decade. Switzerland grabs the bronze medal convincingly, finally earning a medal after fourth-place finishes in 67, 68, 69, and 72. Phil Reed would lead the UK to 2 more victories in 74 and 75. In the latter season, Agostini won the Riders' Championship, but a stronger overall UK team comprised of John Williams and a talented and outgoing Barry Sheene helped the British team hold on for another year. Sheene would take over from Phil Reed for 1976, winning the Riders' Championship and leading the British team to their 4th consecutive and 21st overall Nations Championship. Let's step back and take stock for a moment. It's been 27 seasons now, and only 2 countries have ever won a Nations Championship. Britain with 21, and Italy with 6. Australia is the other most prominent contender, boasting 4 silver and 8 bronze medals. If you were a MotoGP fan in this universe at this time, there was a clear hierarchy. A hierarchy that was about to be forcibly torn apart. Americans were not brand new to Grand Prix motorcycle racing. Buddy Perry had scored the first American point in the 1964 season, and Pat Hennon had brought the US to a valiant 4th place in the Nations Championship in 1976. In 1977, American rider and 3-time Canadian champion Steve Baker joined forces with Pat Hennon. Barry Sheene would take the win in 6 of the first 10 rounds of the season, securing the Riders' Championship with some races still left on the calendar. Pat Hennon would get 4 podiums and end up finishing 3rd on the season, while newcomer Steve Baker would finish in consecutive 2nd and 3rd places. Americans in 2nd and 3rd meant that even with a dominant win in the Riders' Championship, Britain was in danger of losing the Nations Championship. The only way for the Americans to win would be to finish 1st and 2nd in the final round. And Steve Parrish and Barry Sheene, the 2 most talented British riders, would both have to retire. All Barry Sheene and his teammate Steve Parrish had to do was finish in point scoring position. Which track would they be racing at? In their hometown at Silverstone, the Brits got off to a strong start, battling the Americans for the lead. But soon, there was a problem. Barry Sheene would retire, leaving only Steve Parrish out to defend the British title. British fans watched as Parrish held the lead, coming by the pits on lap 25. 2 laps to go, and Britain would be Nations champions, the 5th year in a row. In order to cheer on his teammate, Barry Sheene would hold out the team's pitboard, having written a message of encouragement. "Gas it, wanker." Parrish obliged, pinning the throttle. In the process, he lost control of his bike and crashed out of the race. Sure enough, Pat Hennon would win the race and Steve Baker would come in 2nd, securing a gold medal for the USA by just a single point. This season would also be Giacomo Agostini's last hurrah, securing a bronze medal for Italy one final time. In 1978, the American team would repeat gold with little trouble, thanks to the arrival of dirt tracker Kenny Roberts, who would win the Riders' Championship over Barry Sheene. In 1979, fans would be treated to the closest battle in Nations Championship history. Over the course of the season, Team USA, led by Kenny Roberts' continued domination, Team Italy, led by Virgino Ferrari's consistent podium finishes, Team Netherlands, led by Will Hartog's win in Germany and 4 podiums, and Team UK, led by an aging Barry Sheene, would battle it out. Heading into the final round of the season, the Netherlands led the series with 158 points, ahead of Italy with 143, the USA with 137, and the UK with 115. Dutch fans were ecstatic. Led by Will Hartog and Boat van Doelman, all they would have to do is finish with some points, and the championship would be theirs. Van Duelman would retire at the start of the race, and Will Hartog only managed to finish 22 of the 28 laps. Barry Sheene would go on to finish in first, trailed closely by Kenny Roberts and fellow American Randy Mamola. Gaining 22 points, these three brought Team USA up to 159, 1 point ahead of the Netherlands. Soon, more and more skilled American riders would come into the sport, dominating the 80s with little competition. Kenny Roberts would lead the USA to another gold in 1980. Randy Mamola would take his turn in 81 and 87. Steady Eddie Lawson would lead the team to 4 more titles in 84, 86, 88, and 89. The first half of this decade would see the remaining medal spots trade hands between Italy, Britain, the Netherlands, and New Zealand. But come 1986, Australia would be a mainstay in the silver medal slot, thanks to 2 riders, champion Wayne Gardner and young talent Mick Doohan. In 1990, 91, and 92, the USA, Australia, and Spain would take the top 3 in that order consistently. Spain's first 3 medals brought to them courtesy of Juan Garriga, Cito Pons, and Alex Cribier. In 1993, America would see its last truly dominant victory in the nation's championship, with Kevin Schwantz and Wayne Rainey finishing first and second in the points ahead of Australia and Italy, who just barely beat out Spain in the final round for the bronze medal. Now, after 1993, let's step back and take stock of the situation again. The USA came in and absolutely dominated the sport, knocking the 2 previous kings off their throne handedly. The UK is still in the lead in overall gold medals, having won 21 of them. But in terms of sheer dominance over a period of time, America comes out on top easily, winning an uninterrupted 17 gold medals so far. Italy is still the only other country to have won gold, currently trailing behind at 9 gold medals, with only one extended period of dominance thanks to Giacomo Agostini. Australia has cemented itself as the most successful country to never win gold, not having given up the silver medal position since 1986, but still unable to touch the top step of the podium. However, things might change soon, thanks to their young rider, Mick Doohan. Mick Doohan had been in the championship for a while now, and had been putting up some very impressive performances. 2 second-place finishes in the Riders' Championship had convinced people that he was one of the top talents on the grid, and a permanent title contender. But thus far, he had failed to secure the top spot. Australian fans hoped that they could finally secure the elusive gold medal. Maybe if Mick Doohan could emerge as the sport's next untouchable star. It was a long shot, but it was the only chance they would have. And in the 1994 season, he would do just that.
Welcome to the home of Australia's newest motorcycle racing star, Mick Doohan.
Mick, this must be the place. How's it going?
Yeah, not too bad. While teammate Wayne Gardner's marketing division thrives, helping pay the rent on the high-rise in Monaco, Mick's kept his overheads down. He shares the house with 3, sometimes 4 and often 5 others. The rent comes to about $6 a week. But when we met Mick in March, these were the twilight days at Cockroach Court.
Securing 9 wins in 14 rounds and never once finishing off the podium, Doohan brought home his first Riders' Championship in a display of dominance that left fans awestruck. Riders had brought their teams to gold through carry jobs less impressive than this over the years, so surely Australia was bringing home its first gold medal. Oh. See, we're now in the era of the current points system, and the points drop-off happens much further down the order. Sure, Doohan did absolutely dominate everyone else, winning the Riders' Championship by 100 points. But Americans John Kaczynski and Kevin Schwantz finishing 3rd and 4th with over 150 points nullified all of Doohan's hard work, and American Doug Chandler's 96 points were more than enough to beat out Daryl Beattie and Scott Doohan's combined 48, bringing the USA a victory over Team Australia. Throughout the 1994 season, Schwantz would experience a series of rough crashes, and his injuries were starting to take a toll on him. In 1995, he was the only real American contender left in the series, but after a conversation with fellow countryman Wayne Rainey, who had suffered his own career-ending injury in 1993, Schwantz decided to step down from Grand Prix motorcycle racing. Mick Doohan, without an American rival to push him, would go on to win the Riders' Championship with relative ease. His countryman Daryl Beattie put on the best season of his career by a wide margin, and finished 2nd in Riders' Championship points. On his own, Doohan couldn't get the job done, but with another contender by his side, the nation's championship changed hands for the first time since 1977, and Australia were now world champions in motorcycle Grand Prix racing. To the fans, Australia were now clearly the new kings of the sport. With an untouchable rider like Doohan and the breakout star Daryl Beattie, it seemed like they couldn't lose heading into 1996. In a preseason practice, Beattie would suffer a terrible crash and serious head injuries, causing him to miss the first 2 races of the season. After coming back and getting a respectable 5th place finish in Japan, he would suffer crashes again in Spain and France, and would not return again for the remainder of the season. So how did Mick do on his own? Well, he was still damn good. 8 wins and 4 second places left him as the dominant winner in the Riders' Championship. In our championship though, he wouldn't find as much success, thanks to the rise of 2 new competitors. Thanks to a Japanese team that had been making ground over the past few years, Japanese fans would rejoice as their countrymen brought home their first medal with a strong silver led by Norifumi Abe. Taking gold for the first time, however, would be Spain, led by Alex Crivier. Spain and Crivier were no strangers to Nations Championship success. They had won 5 medals over the past 6 years, and Crivier was the key to breaking through, but he was unable to do so on his own. He had been on 3 bronze medal teams, but in both instances, he had only had 1 other teammate in a season where the max team size was 3. This year, he had 2 teammates finish in 8th and 11th respectively, which was enough to secure the top spot. At this point, Doohan would surely be feeling bittersweet. He was untouchable on the individual stage, and had just completed the elusive three-peat. But he was consistently unable to bring glory back to his homeland like the other greats had done. In 1997, things would be better. Daryl Beattie would be coming back, and together they could establish Australia as the next MotoGP dynasty after the Americans. Someone should really check on Mick Doohan. Guy just can't catch a break. Daryl Beattie was unable to return to form after his injuries, and would only manage a measly 63 points, and a strong Japanese team would win the Nations Championship instead, headed by 2nd, 3rd, and 5th place finishes. Doohan would again be untouchable in the Riders' Championship, but once again, that wouldn't be enough. It didn't matter though, as long as he was able to race, he would keep trying. Next season is always another chance at glory. Heading into 1998, fans were ecstatic. 4 different champions in the last 4 years, and an Italian team looking stronger than ever with the inclusion of now 4-time 250cc Riders champion Max Biaggi. It was anyone's race, but Mick Doohan was unrelenting, clinching his 5th Riders title in a row. So where did he land? 3rd place. Again. At this point, you might be asking why we've been following Mick Doohan through the 90s if you found such little success. Well, it's because Mick showed us that this is a new era. The new point system means that it's not possible for a rider to carry a country to a championship all by themselves anymore. For his time, Doohan was as individually dominant as a Halewood or a Surtees. Mick Doohan was just in the right place at the wrong time. In 1999, in a practice session for the Spanish Grand Prix, Doohan would break his leg in several places, and would announce his retirement soon after. You can't win championships on your own anymore. So which team would step up to be the best in this new era? Okay, before we talk about that one guy, you know who, let me tell you the story of Alex Barros. Barros was a Brazilian rider who started racing at the age of 8. He was highly successful in national championships, winning the Brazilian Minibike Championship, followed by 2 consecutive Brazilian Moped Championships. In 1981, he would win his first 50cc championship, followed by a 250cc championship in 1985. In 1986, he would move up, making his debut in the Grand Prix World Championships 80cc class, lying about his age so he could race in the Spanish Grand Prix at age 15. He would finish the season with 6 points. Next season, he wouldn't fare much better, finishing with just 8 points. But the following season would see him graduate to 250cc. He wouldn't find much success here either, finishing with no points in 88 and finishing 18th in 89. Nonetheless, he continued upwards. Unafraid of the bright lights of the premier class, he became the youngest 500cc rider up to that point at just 20 years old. And he actually saw some success here. When he finished races, he would do so in point scoring positions. Unfortunately, finishing races didn't happen very often. Barros would retire his Honda in 6 races during the 1990 season, finishing 12th in the Riders' Championship and leaving Brazil in 7th in the Nations Championship. Make no mistake, Brazilian fans rejoiced. It was their first finish in the Nations Championship since the 1970s, and it was only Barros' first year. Perhaps he would lead a wave of Brazilian riders to become the next great motorcycle dynasty. Of course, this wasn't true, but at the time, anything seemed possible. And over the following 2 years, Barros would put up similar results, missing the majority of the 91 season and finishing middle of the pack in 92. In 1993, Barros would join Team Lucky Strike Suzuki and would get his very first win at the final round of the season at the FIM Grand Prix in South Africa. Barros finished 6th in the Riders' Championship and Brazil finished 6th in the Nations Championship, all thanks to him. Barros left Suzuki the following season and bounced around Honda teams until he landed at Honda Pons, continuing to finish in the top 10 in every Riders' Championship, and he brought the Brazilian team into 5th and 4th place finishes all on his own nearly every year, but was never able to secure a medal. In 2000, Barros would get his best chance yet. Italian riders Max Biaggi and a rookie named Valentino Rossi raced against Kenny Roberts Jr. for the title, with Barros finishing in 4th, just barely ahead of the Australian Gary McCoy. When it was all said and done, the Italian powerhouse duo would finish 2nd and 3rd to lead their country to its first Nations Championship in 28 years. Meanwhile, strong, consistent top 10 finishes made up the 2nd and 3rd place spots. Spain's team of Carlos Checa, Alex Crivier, and Sete Gibernau finished 6th, 9th, and 15th respectively, and Japan's bronze medal team would finish 8th, 10th, and 11th. As if the universe was trying to prove you can't win a medal on your own anymore, the Riders' champion Kenny Roberts Jr. finished outside the nation's podium by 90 points. This was the first time a Riders' champion would ever fail to win a nation's championship medal. 2001 would see a repeat of 2000, only this time Barros was seated behind 3 Italians. Rossi, Biaggi, and Caparossi took the top 3 spots of the Riders' Championship in the most dominant Nations Championship victory we had ever seen. Barros would finish 4th, but as he has shown time and time again, on his own he wouldn't be enough, and Japan and Spain would take silver and bronze in the Nations Championship. In 2002, the biggest change in sports history would occur. The premier class was changing from 500cc to MotoGP, meaning both 2-stroke 500cc's and 4-stroke 990cc bikes would be allowed to compete. For the first 10 rounds of the season, Barros would stick with his Honda NSR 500 and would continue to find middling results. But then, just after his home round and before the Pacific Grand Prix, he would switch over to the new Honda RC211V. Suddenly, Barros could race with the best of them, finishing atop the podium in the Pacific round, 3rd in Malaysia and 2nd in Australia. He couldn't hope to win the Riders' Championship now, but the nation's medal was just barely within his grasp. Italy had already run away with the Nations Championship. That was a given. They were 200 points ahead of Japan, who was 200 points ahead of everybody else. But Barros did have a slim chance of stealing 3rd from Spain. It would take a miracle. Spain's team for 2002 consisted of Jose Luis Cardoso, who was making one of only 5 appearances at the final round. Sete Gibernau had not made a great adjustment to MotoGP, but was consistently scoring points. The real threat in this race was Carlos Checa, right behind Barros in the points and starting from 5th on the grid. All the Spaniards had to do was score over 7 points to guarantee a victory. And then, even if Barros won, they would still take the bronze medal. Alex Barros needed to come in 2nd place to even have a chance of winning the medal, and would probably have to come in 1st. the start of the race, the unthinkable would happen. Carlos Checa's bike would fail to get off the line, and his teammate Jose Luis Cardoso would collide with the rear of his bike, ending both of their races instantly. Now, it was all up to Sete Gibernau, starting from 10th on the grid to finish 9th or better. After a good start, Gibernau would hold 7th place for the first 5 laps, while Alex Barros put up a healthy defense against Rossi up in the front. On lap 5, disaster would strike for the Spanish. Gibernau would go wide in a corner and run off into the gravel, rejoining at the back of the pack. Now, all Barros had to do was finish 2nd or better, and the bronze medal would be coming home to Brazil. He had done it. Alex Barros had brought home a medal all on his own, a feat that not even champions could accomplish in the modern era. Barros had done. Let's just take a look at how amazing this really is. Here's every rider since the start of the current point system, placed on a graph. The y-axis is the number of national team appearances they've had, and the x-axis is the total number of national team points they contributed. To even make this list, you have to be one of the best riders from your country for at least a season. For reference, here's Regis Laconi, a one-time Grand Prix winner and pretty good rider, who scored 222 national team points across 3 appearances. Down here we'll find riders like Pecco Bagnaia and Jorge Martin, recent additions to the grid who've already contributed a lot of Nations Championship points. Going up a little further brings us to some familiar names. Here we find riders like Carlos Checa and Alex Crivier. Up here, we have the best of modern MotoGP. Andrea Dovizioso, Marc Marquez, Danny Pedrosa, Casey Stoner, Mick Doohan, and Nicky Hayden are all here. And right at the top, with 1,947 points across 14 appearances, we find Alex Barros. Barros was one of the greats, and he did it all on his own. No teammates to speak of across 14 seasons. If we only count the points that riders got on their own without teammates, Barros is all on his own. Let's bring everyone back. I feel like someone's missing. We've been hearing a lot about this kid Rossi who's winning championships for Italy. Where's he? Oh, that's where.
Yamaha Motors, can I help you?
Hey, you sound a lot like Valentino Rossi.
I am Valentino. Sir, who you calling for?
Holy smokes! I can't believe I'm talking to you. Hey, congratulations on your 100th victory. That was the best moment of my life. You and I have got to hang out sometime soon. We can ride our Yamahas together.
Sir, please call back when you know who you want to speak to. Okay? I hang up now.
We've already seen the first 3 Rossi-led Italian championships in 2000, 2001, and 2002. But the truth is, Rossi wouldn't slow down until the end of this decade, working alongside Italian greats like Marco Melandri, Loris Capirossi, and Max Biaggi to secure 8 gold medals in the 2000s. Rossi was the most dominant individual rider since Agostini, and he lasted a hell of a lot longer, riding for 25 years and making 19 national team appearances. From 2001 to 2006, the Italian team would win every national championship by at least 200 points. Japan would win their last medal in 2003, a bronze medal team consisting of Shinya Nakano, Makoto Tamada, and Toru Ukawa. Young American riders Nicky Hayden and Colin Edwards would make the US competitive again for the first time since their dominance in the 80s and early 90s. They would compete with Spain for silver medals in the early and mid-2000s, getting the better of them twice. During the 2006 season, Australian fans would get another burst of hope when MotoGP rookie Casey Stoner would secure pole position in just his second race. However, he would prove to be inconsistent on his LCR Honda, crashing several times throughout the season. Stoner would move to factory Ducati for the 2007 season, and would utterly dominate, winning 10 of 18 rounds. Alongside his fellow Australian Chris Vermeulen, Australia would claim its second nation's gold medal. In 2009, 4 riders would emerge from the rest as Riders' Championship contenders: Valentino Rossi, Jorge Lorenzo, Casey Stoner, and Danny Pedrosa. These 4 riders would duke it out, and eventually Rossi would win. But the combination of Pedrosa and Lorenzo's powers would prove to be too much for Rossi to overcome, and Spain would claim their 4th nation's gold medal. And this duo would prove to be just the thing needed to overcome Rossi's individual dominance. The next 3 years would be utterly dominated by the Spanish duo, with Italy and the USA taking silver and bronze medals. Casey Stoner by this point had been left as the only member of the Australian team, and even a championship win in 2011 wouldn't be enough to secure a medal. His final medal would come the next year, a bronze. In 2013, a new rookie would emerge from Spain, making the already formidable duo of Pedrosa and Lorenzo an untouchable trio.
Marc Marquez drank some water. It was in a water bottle anyway.
In his rookie season, Marc Marquez would never finish off the podium, and would only retire from 2 races, winning the Premier Class Championship in his very first year. This Nations Championship may be the most dominant of all time. The 3 Spaniards finished 1, 2, and 3, and racked up a total of 964 points, over 500 points above Italy in second place. The next 3 years would feature identical podiums in the Nations Championship, Spain dominating the top step, Rossi, Iannone, and Dovizioso securing second for Italy, and Cal Crutchlow, Bradley Smith, and Scott Redding getting the UK its first medals since the 1980s. 2016 would see the emergence of another perennial title contender from Spain, Maverick Viñales. Now with a quadruple threat from Spain, it truly seemed like nobody could put a stop to them. Meanwhile, Johan Zarco would emerge as a contender for France, and secured a bronze medal in 2017, with Italy and Spain reprising their silver and gold medal positions respectively. 2018 would see a similar podium, with Cal Crutchlow leading the UK to a bronze medal over France. This year would mark Valentino Rossi's last appearance on a national team. After completing the most dominant career in modern MotoGP, it was time to let the next generation take over. Italy would now have to be carried by Dovizioso and Danilo Petrucci. Meanwhile, Team France would get some help in the form of Fabio Quartararo. In 2019, Marquez would win his 6th consecutive Riders' Championship and secure Spain's 11th straight Nations Championship, while Italy would secure their 11th consecutive silver medal. Quartararo and Zarco rounded out the podium, getting France its 2nd medal in 3 years. Early in 2020, Marquez would suffer a season-ending injury while chasing Quartararo in the first race of the year.
Marc Marquez is down. He's gone again. Oh, that's a big crash. He's not saving that one. I hope he's all right.
Ending his season. Viñales would also struggle this year, with the 2 best Spanish riders remaining on the grid being out. It seemed like the door might be open. It wasn't. Spain had become such a hotbed of young talent in recent years that 3 new riders who had never made a national team were able to win in one of MotoGP's most competitive recent seasons: Joan Mir, Alex Rins, and Pol Espargaro would take home the gold for Spain. Mir would lead a Spanish repeat in 2021, with France securing its first and only silver medal, and some new Italian faces grabbing the bronze. Francisco Bagnaia and Enea Bastianini were not content with third place, however, and in 2022 would finally break the Spanish winning streak, beating out Aleix Espargaro, Alex Rins, and Jorge Martin, and winning Italy's first non-Rossi Nations Championship of the MotoGP era. 2023 would see the introduction of sprint races, a format which Spanish rider Jorge Martin would thrive in. Unfortunately for Spanish fans, Bagnaia would only continue to improve, winning his second consecutive Riders' Championship and bringing glory to Italy one final time. And that brings us to the present. After 75 years of Nations Championships, what have we learned? Let's look at a few metrics to see who comes out on top. First, who won the most championships? Well, Britain's early dominance allows them to keep the crown for the most overall gold medals, as it was never matched. They secured 21 gold medals. Following them, we have the USA with 18, Italy with 17, and Spain with 16. Australia managed to secure 2 golds, and Japan grabbed 1. 42 countries who scored points in the MotoGP Nations Championship over the years, only 6 managed to get gold medals. Let's look at it another way. If we scale the medals on a point system, with gold medals being worth 4 points, silver medals being worth 2, and bronze medals worth 1, we get these results. Italy's high number of overall medals grants them a grand total of 139 points. Their consistency, winning 58 total medals, never once failing to make an appearance across 75 seasons, gets them the overall win. The UK's sheer gold medal force slots them in a second with 113 points. Spain finishes in third with 84, doing so in just 34 years, having won their first medal in 1990 and finishing just 3 points ahead of the USA's 81. Australia's consistent silver and bronze medal dominance nets them 48 medal points, ahead of Japan's 16. France comes in 7th with a total of 12 points, followed by the Netherlands with 6, Ireland with 5, and Zimbabwe with 4. In a two-way tie for 11th, we have Finland and Argentina with 3 points apiece, followed by a 3-way tie for 13th between New Zealand, Canada, and Germany with 2 points, and last but not least, a 5-way tie for 16th place, with 1 point apiece between Switzerland, Sweden, Venezuela, South Africa, and Brazil. So there you have it, the entire history of the MotoGP Nations Championship. This video took a lot of research, writing, and editing, so first of all, thank you so much for watching it all the way through. I'm glad I was able to provide some entertainment. Second of all, I would really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe, as it really does make an impact on what content I produce. I know you hear stuff like that a lot, but on a smaller channel like mine, it really does make all the difference. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day.